I don't know why we always worry about starting this thing trying to get it started right at 8. Say we got 0 people sitting here waiting on us.
Yeah,
I,
but
fi- I
we're from
figured
that
they'd be
age
lined up down the street.
we're from that age group where promptness is important.
Yeah, that's right. For me and you.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's not important for anybody else. So, yeah, we were talking about nicotine stuff. I was showing you those Alps. That's that Tucker Carlson nicotine pouch. I like them. Um, you can go on the website, and we don't make any. This is just an observation. I ordered them right off the Alps site, and they're comparable in price to those Rogues or anything else. But I just thought
Uh-oh.
I'd buy them because Tucker advertised them.
Yeah, I like Tucker.
Yep, yep. So hey, there's one thing I gotta do before we bring our guests on. We got a guest tonight, everybody. We got Brad Hall. I've Brad and I have known each other for decades. He's a coon hunter from here in Indiana, and he's going to be hosting a podcast for us on Fridays. And we're going to get into all that. But I gotta say something up front because um, last week I had this big plan on what we're going to talk about, and then we went down the rabbit hole on AI and stuff. But I kind of glazed over a topic, and I got a bunch of emails back on it about my opinion about breed associations. And it's like, man, you need to support your breed associations, and I do. I'm a member of the Blue Tick Breeders and Coon Hunters. I think my membership's ready to be renewed. The American Plot Association, stuff like that. So it's not that I don't support them. I'm challenging. I wanted to get into talking about challenging leadership and challenging members to, um, start looking ahead and thinking about how we're going to do things in the future. Because most of these organizations breed organizations are still operating like they did 25, 30 years ago. They're really behind. I mean, the main purpose to join the organization and belong is so that you can qualify for the trophies at your breed hunts. So I wanted to get that out there. It wasn't it's I was just saying we need to start looking ahead
Yeah,
and
it
getting with the
wasn't
times.
yeah, I didn't think that you were saying don't
No, no,
join.
no. Well, I did get a couple. It's like you shouldn't be telling people not to join. I'm saying we need to get our act together, and if you're going to join organizations that I believe in joining organizations that are going to be most effective for us. So, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't take it. I didn't take it that way, but people take stuff sometimes the way they want to take it.
I don't sit around at night worried about how people take stuff, but I felt like I left it undone last week because we did get sidetracked by the whole AI thing. So, hey, before we bring our guests on, if you're checking in, I'm gonna go ahead and run the banner at the across the bottom for comments. But the first comment, let us know who you are, where you're at, where you're from. Check in with us and let us know that you're out there watching. So, you ready to bring Brad on? This guy's a trip, man.
Yeah,
If we turn him loose, it's uh it's hard to say what's going to happen here. So,
yeah.
Brad Hall,
What's going on, boys?
how you doing, man?
Good. How y'all doing?
Good.
Good. So you
Yep.
talking about that Alps? You
Yeah.
know, I never was a chewer because I got broke the first time. All right.
I think we all did. Some of us just went back for more.
Bring back a story. All right. I was hunting years ago, about 20 years. I was 20, and I had a
That's
good
been
buddy.
33 years ago, buddy.
Yes, sir. And so I had a friend, Jerry Wayne Spurlock. All right. And Jerry Wayne had a good blue tick back in the day named Undertaker. And anyways, I was 20 years old. I had old Bushwhacker, and it was summertime. And old Jerry Wayne, he'd shoot that red man and dip and stuff. And he said, Brad, he said, give yourself a chew here, try it out. So, God, I put a real wad in. And all right. So I'm sitting on the back of this tree, and I'm like leaning on the back of this tree, sitting down.
Which side's the front of the tree?
I had the tree behind me. Yeah.
All right.
So I'm leaning back on this tree, and I'm chewing, and I'm sort of spitting. I think I was. I must have done something wrong. Them dogs got treed. Old Bushwhacker got treed. And boys, I stood up, and the world started turning. I mean, I got so daggum sick. I started throwing up. They had a dang near carry me out of the wood. I was just sweating. I laid in the back of the truck. All the way back to the house, trying to get air on me. Boys, I never touched that stuff again. It broke me right there.
Is that right? It just took one time?
It took one time.
I got a funny chewing story. My stepdad chewed Levi Garrett, and there were, I don't even remember how many kids there were in our family at the time, 4, maybe 5. I don't think there were 6 yet. I'm the oldest of 6. And it was summertime, and garden was on full swing. And we were all out there sitting at the barn right at the gate of the cow pasture, and we were shucking corn and throwing the husks over it. The whole family was out there. We were all up there. And Dad was chewing Levi Garrett, and Mom was on him. She's like, "Do you need to chew that out here with the kids around?" He goes, "Well, you can chew some too." And she says, "Well, I'll take some." So she starts chewing. And then me and Matt jump in, and we're chewing too. And we think we're cool. We love it. Leave it, you know. Well, Matt was in, he was in 4th grade, and I was in 5th grade at the time. And we go back to school, and nobody knew this even happened. About 3 weeks later, this was summertime, corn was on. It was early in the school year, and they had one of those parent open houses. And we were going to a Christian school. We were going to East Columbus Christian School at the time. Mom goes into Matt's classroom, and of course I was in tow too, and we're walking through there, and they got all their pictures and stuff displayed. Matt had drawn this picture of all of us sitting out there at the barn with cows in it and corn, and it says across the top, "We all sit at the barn and chuck corn and chew tobacco." In 4th grade at the Christian school. My mom was ready to die. And of course, it showed Mom with a big wad in her mouth, too. You know, I mean, it was detailed. It was awesome. It was the most awesome thing. And it had to be like, show us what you did for the summer. Of all the things that happened that summer, that's what my brother wrote about in 4th grade.
Yeah. We was hunting here a couple weeks ago, and I was telling Cody and Tanner, you know, like women used to do nasal snuff. Like, you ever seen nasal snuff?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like real.
That's what Red Rooster and stuff was supposed to be.
Yeah. So I was telling them about it, and then I guess Cody was telling somebody he works with about it, and then that guy went to every smoke shop around and found some. And Cody was like, "Man, it is great." And he busted out a can of it. But like a can, I mean, it used to be cheap. I like everything. It used to be cheap, but it's a can. It's a little bit, maybe a tad bit smaller than a snuff can, a dip can. And I think he said it was $18 or $19.
No way.
Yeah, I was like, don't get addicted to that.
No kidding.
Well, I mean, that's like Levi Garrett and Redman. You can't even. That's what I prefer.
You know, they changed the name of Redman chewing tobacco.
Yeah,
it's it called? American tobacco or something now.
American something.
Yeah.
But we get it. I don't know if it's everywhere, but at the smoke shops here, you can get leaf tobacco. It's called Big Duke, and it's a $1.99 a pouch.
No kidding.
It ain't bad. But yeah, I mean, Levi Garrett's.
Even Brad could chew.
What's that?
I said even Brad might be able to handle Big Duke.
You know, I don't know if I could ever do it. I really can't. We're talking about this chewing. I got to tell you, back in my honky tonk days in my 20s, I was a honky tonker and loved the country line dance and all that. And I met this girl, and she
Did
was a
she chew?
pretty blonde. I mean, she was a beautiful young lady. And we ended up going on a date, and it was a daytime date. It was during the day, and we were coming back from Columbus, as a matter of fact.
My
And,
hometown.
yeah, and so I'm leaned back. I got tired, and I leaned the seat back because she was driving her car.
Oh,
And,
okay.
and so
Okay. I was
yeah. So I leaned
don't
the
go into
seat
too
back
much
because,
detail.
yeah, I'm taking a nap. All right.
Sounds like a
I'm
good
taking a
day.
nap in this car. And all of a sudden, guys, I hear the popping of what it sounded like somebody popping a can of snuff. All right. That's exactly right. That's what I
Yeah.
started hearing. And I thought to myself, no, no. And then I could smell it. And so I sort of leaned over and just sort of opened up an eye, looked over there. And sure enough, she had a big old dip in. And
Mm.
so I was like, man, I don't know if I can get past that now. So
Brad's like, I don't drink and I don't chew and I don't go with girls that do.
Sounds like a keeper.
I don't know if I could have got past that. So,
Oh man.
in all honesty, that's the reason I didn't date her no more. I couldn't handle that. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're not on here to talk about chewing, but you
Yeah.
can always spot a rookie, like somebody that just started chewing Copenhagen, because Copenhagen snuff, if you try to pack it like that right there, I mean,
Yep.
everybody tries to do it too hard and it just scatters the can. I
Oh, yeah.
chewed Copenhagen for 40 years, and I always just tap it. Just tap it on the side of my finger. And I'm telling you, I'm chewing these out thing, but I hate them, and I would like French kiss Ed right now if he was chewing Copenhagen. It doesn't go away. It doesn't go
You're,
away.
so you're
Well,
still off of it?
Yep.
my
Yep.
my last chew story. So about 15 years ago at work, I had a buddy there at work, and he did that little number with his hands, and he said, Brad, he said, just give it a dip. I said, dude, I ain't tried one of those since that. And so I said, let me see that thing. So I thought I'd pop that thing like he did. Son, that thing opened up and it went everywhere.
Everywhere.
It went everywhere. I just reached in my billfold, handing him $5 and said, I'm sorry.
Well, Brad, we brought you on tonight for a couple reasons. One thing, I mean, let's just talk about this up front. We got a new podcast coming out. It's going to drop Friday. And if anybody wants to hear it, they need to they can go to our website and you can listen to it there on those links, or you can find it on Xtreme Performance Outdoor Network on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever. And you're drinking clear liquid out of a jar. What you
Water.
got? Okay. All right. Well, all right. All right. I got some clear liquid in the jar in the next room. But anyway, that's what it's going to be called Grace and the Chase podcast. And after this podcast, me and Ed are going to need a lot of grace. So,
It'll balance.
yep. So tell us what you got going on, Brad.
Well, guys, I mean, you reached out to me, Chris, a couple months ago, I think it was, and we got to talking about putting a podcast out there that's faith based, and
Mm-hmm.
that there's a good response to podcast that faith based and hound dog related, and so I prayed on it. I felt good about it as soon as you asked me about it, and I prayed on it. I'm like, yeah, this is me. I feel like this is something God preparing me for the last 5 going on 6 years.
Right.
6 years ago, and so I didn't really know my identity in Christ, Chris, until about 6 years ago. For years and years and years, I went to church and I was saved. I was a believer, but I was more like a miserable believer because
I remember your legalistic fundamental days.
Yeah, and so legalistic and all that stuff,
Right.
and so I got to really studying the full context of the truth of the scriptures, and it's all about grace. At the end of the day, it's all about grace. And so, when you reached out to me years ago when I was in my 20s, 30s, early 40s.
Let's talk about that story first. Let's pump the brakes here for just a second. So, um, I've been looking for a long time. We've got this platform that we started building 6 years ago, and I would sit in church and I would listen to different parts of messages. It's like, man, I could use that um, in a podcast. I could use that lesson and try to figure out how to transfer it over. And I've always been I mean, like the beginning of the show, I grew up in church and taught an adult Bible class at my church, and we had an outfitting business here, and it was a Christian church supported outfitting business where we took kids on outdoor adventures and families, and we took them hunting and outfitted them for river adventures. I mean, just all kinds of cool stuff. So it's always been something that's been really near and dear to me, and uh, I've really felt the desire to add this type of a show to our platform. And I was really, and man, I was looking. I talked to people, and I knew other people that were houndsmen. That some of them are ministers, and some of them are, they, you know, they're not ashamed of their faith and stuff like that. But I couldn't find anybody, and for some reason, I was reading something that you wrote on Facebook, and I thought, Brad Hall, that would be a guy because you're an auctioneer. I've watched you officiate and MC our Hoosier Tree Dog Alliance events and banquets and stuff. You've never been. I tell people all the time, Brad's the type of guy that you're not starstruck by people. You walk right up to them and start talking to them, and just be totally natural.
Yeah.
Yep.
But thank
So
you.
I'm glad you agreed to do it, man.
I appreciate you tapping me to do it. I'm looking forward to it. Uh, you know, what I'd like to do is so many people that come on the podcast shows and stuff are the big breeders, the big winners, and all that. This is going to be a show about just coon hunters in general. I mean, any coon
You've got
hunters
some
out
pretty
there.
big names that you've already recorded, though.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, some of the big time guys that you've already recorded shows with.
yeah, and really looking forward to bringing them on. I mean,
Yeah,
having their podcast drop.
right.
So, but I'm also looking for that old country coon hunter that loved the pleasure hunt, that had many things to share and get just as much joy out of pleasure hunting as the competition hunter does winning the world hunt.
Right.
And then what we do is we'll tie into it. How did Jesus Christ work in your life? What did faith mean to you as a believer? Just to be able to branch out from there and just encourage and bless others that they listen, and hopefully maybe learn some things that they didn't know about before, biblically.
Well, the way the best testimony though is always one that we live,
Yes, sir.
and some of the best conversations that I've had with people, like I drew um, a guy down in Tennessee. Oh man, this is embarrassing. Old man brain is kicking in. Kevin, I'll think of it. This is embarrassing. I know Kevin real well. But anyway, we drew out at a mountain cur hunt. And I apologize, Kevin. I'm having one of those moments, man. Um, but we drew out at a mountain cur hunt. He's always packed an ice dog. I always packed an ice dog, or hoped I did. And it was a shootout through the whole thing. But the thing I don't remember is who won that cast. Kevin may remember, but I don't, because when you can conduct yourself in a way that somebody else is understanding, it, it doesn't mean that you're giving each other free passes and stuff like that. It just means that you can be comfortable in your own skin, and it was really good. Kevin Yates. Kevin Yates is his name. And he's going to be like, yeah, we're real good friends. You can't remember my name.
Don't feel bad. I do the same thing all the time. I can't remember names for
Well, you
nothing.
get here and you think, you're thinking about all this other stuff, and you're trying to remember everything. And then some of the easiest stuff doesn't even come back to you because you're thinking about the conversation we're having. So let's talk about your coon hunting background.
Yeah. So, man, it started back when I was 5 years old. My dad, he's a coon hunter from southeastern Kentucky, mountain called Letcher County. A county called Letcher County, and he grew up on Pine Mountain. And there wasn't very many coons back then. A lot of possums, a lot of foxhounds, fox hunting. And so Dad moved up here to Indiana in 1966. And when Dad came up here, he had a foxhound, and it was a red bone. And the problem was there wasn't no foxes up here. And so they go hunting.
Was it an actual red bone or was it a red?
It's a red bone, full blooded red
kidding.
bone. Yep. And so that red bone one night, just fell tree. They went in there and had a coon, and the red bone never looked back. Dad said to this day it's one of the best coon dogs he ever remembered. And he thinks because that red bone could run a fox so fast that when he got up here, it could track a coon so fast that it'd push them up the tree before they can get in. Just treat a lot of coons with that dog.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it wasn't that Dad wasn't a coon hunter, but down there, if they killed a coon a year, that was a good dog. And so that's when Dad started coon hunting hard up here. And Dad hunted probably 10 years, Chris, 10 years before he realized that you could sell coon fur. And yeah. So he met this guy out in the woods, another coon hunter named Elmer Moe Johnson. And Dad just shot a coon out on old Red. And Dad said, old Elmer looked at him. They called him Big Mo. Big Mo said, Albert, what are you going to do with that coon there? Just let it lay. Why? You want him? You want to eat him? He said, no, I want the fur. Dad said, what do you want the fur for? 10 years.
Really?
Yes, sir.
I mean, I don't even understand how that could happen. Because Fur Fish and Game magazine was out at the time. Yep. But Indiana fur boom and stuff.
Yeah, Dad,
did he just work and go hunt and spend time with family?
Just pleasure hunting. Him and one other boy named Don Wagner. He moved up here from Kentucky too.
Yeah.
So anyways, I came along in 72, and as long as I could remember, Dad coon hunted, especially after he realized then coon can make him money. And so I can remember being 6, 7 years old, and Dad would work afternoon shift, come home, hunt from 11 to 3 or 4 a.m. in the morning, try to, get them coons during kill season. And so the first time I ever went, I was 5 years old, went hunting with Dad, and he had an old black and tan named Stoney. Stoney got treated in there, and my brother went with me. And crossed the fence. Dad said, boys, you got to stay right here. He said, it's too thick in there. And I remember hearing him shoot the coon out, and the coon come out of the tree and squalling and fighting and carrying on. And Dad bring that coon out. My brother didn't care for it, but boy, I thought, man, this is pretty wild. And fell in love with it from that point on. And so I just started begging Dad to take me. And so that just started my coon hunting, and just absolutely loved it ever since.
Isn't that crazy how raised in the same house by the same guy?
Yeah.
One of you gets the bug and the other one doesn't. My brother, I don't have any brothers that have hounds either. Matt always liked the beagles. He did like beagles, but he wasn't much on what are we walking around the dark for,
Right.
He was always kind of scared of the dark too.
Yeah.
He was. So the barn set way up. When you're a kid, it seems like it sits way up at the house. But like I do stuff like we had the chores split up. If it was his turn to water, then I would feed, and if it's his turn to feed, I'd water. I'd always try to get my chores done first, so I could leave the barn because it was always dark, and then I'd hide down in the corn crib and you'd see the lights go off, and then you'd hear the gravel crunching, and it was like Mach 3 down through there, man. and you'd jump out and scare him, so it became a game. We'd start screwing with each other.
Well, Chris, I had it so bad coon hunting when I was a kid.
Why do you think your brother didn't pick it up though? I didn't mean to derail that.
You know, I don't know. I really don't, because, like you said, we were raised in the same home. He just didn't. He just. You know what? I tell you what. This may have something to do with that same dog, Stony. All right, he was black and tan, and I say it would probably
That could turn a guy off.
within a year, within that year, it was summertime, and Stony got loose. And when Stony got loose, my brother caught him, and he tried to drag that dog back to the dog box to tie him up on a lead. And Chris, I don't know why, but that dog turned on him, and I mean mauled him and took him down and was tearing him up.
That'd probably do it.
And the neighbors were screaming, and they came over with a piece of meat to try to draw the dog off. I mean, that dog was over my brother, daring him to move 1 inch. My mom's just screaming and carrying on. I'm seeing all this. And they finally got the dog off. And Dad works afternoon shift, and my mom raced my brother to the hospital, and he had to have a bunch of stitches on him and everything. And when Dad got home, Dad grabbed his gun. He said, "I'm killing that dog." And his buddy begged him. He said, "Albert, look," he said, "don't kill the dog." He said, "You can sell him and make some money." And I think Dad may have sold him for $500 back then. But I mean, any of us would have killed a dog. So I think that had a lot to do with my brother saying, "I don't want nothing to do with this," and just left some, mental scars that way. So I think to give him a fair shake, that's probably what happened. That
Sure.
And so, but me, I was ate up with it, and it probably affected me. It affected me at school. My every waking moment at school, I couldn't wait until Friday, Saturday to go coon hunting. During that movie come where the Red Fern Crows came out. 1981, 1982, Dad went to Autumn Oaks just to walk around. He comes back home and says, "Son, you wouldn't believe this place. Autumn Oaks is huge." I think it was down at Jasper, if I remember. Okay. And so Dad said they had a movie they were playing there, son, named Where the Red Fern Grows. He said, "You've got to see this movie when it comes out." And Chris, every Sunday, the Indianapolis Star, the city newspaper, would come out, and it would have the full week of all the TV channels and movies coming out. And I would search that newspaper every Sunday looking for that movie to come out. And so, I mean, I was ate up with this stuff during the what do you call it, study hall. Dad ordered Full Cry magazine, and I would read every O.L. Beckham. I mean, every article, and study them dogs, the ads, and I just ate up with it, loved it. All right.
Looked at all the Bill Boatman ads, thought about that big flashlight.
Yeah. And so, anyway, the story goes, I mean, I lived and breathed coon hunting. It even affected me in football. I went to play high school football, and I wanted to go coon hunting. Dad said, "Son, you can't do both. You're going to have to pick a choice." And I said, "I want to coon hunt." And so that's what I ended up doing. So I was about 15, 16 years old. All right, this is a good one now. All right, I'm 15 or 16 years old, and all I could think of during summertime, I baled hay, and then I'd coon hunt at night. And I lived out in the country. Dad moved to the country, and the way it was set up, I could walk from my house and coon hunt all night, all the patchwood within 5 miles around me.
Yeah.
And so that's what I would do. But I had this dog at that time, and I really wanted to get this coon knocked out on this dog. Well, you can't kill coons out of season. So Dad, he put his guns up. Well, I found out where Dad had his 22 John Wayne 9-cylinder revolver that, I mean, it's the whole thing, the kind that goes around your waist and bullet hole, the cowboy gun.
Yeah.
Revolver. And Dad had it in his closet. And so I snuck in Dad's closet and pulled that John Wayne and hid it in my bedroom, and I was going to take that thing coon hunting that night to knock some coon out while I'm coon hunting. Well, it just so happened that night I took my buddy Jonas Parks, and me and Jonas, we got treed in the first patchwoods, and sure enough, that dog had a coon. Well, here's the problem, boys. You take a man never shoot a pistol before, and I'm trying to shoot it like a 22. You know, I'm trying to pull it right up there. I'm not hitting this thing. I'm not having no luck hitting it. What I didn't know,
What time of year was it?
it was dead in the summer,
I
July.
figured as much.
And so what I didn't know is Dad decided to listen to the dogs run that night. So when he heard that gun go off, the next thing I know, we're on the edge of a bean field. I hear, Brad, Brad, hey, Brad. And I duck and I turn my lights off. And Jonas said, Brad, that's your dad.
It's like you're hiding from the game warden.
Yeah. So he said, Brad, that's your dad. God, we hit that bean field, and I swear I probably crawled all the way to town. I mean, I went to the other end of that bean field because I'm like, oh no, you know, Dad knows that I'm shooting a gun. So we waited like 2 hours, guys. And this is on a work night. And so I'm coming back home, and it's about 1 a.m., and I'm scared to death. And the barn, the garage, the lights were off. And the lights were off at the house. So I'm thinking, oh, yeah, Dad's in bed now. So I put the dog up. I feed the dog. And guys, when I walked in that barn, my dad was sitting in the chair, arms crossed, waiting on me in the dark.
In the dark.
Madder than fire, boy. But here's the funny thing. He looked at Jonas and said, Jonas, give me that gun. He said, what do you mean? He said, you boys know better than taking the gun to the woods. Now give me that gun. I'm going to have a talk with your mom and dad. Mr. Hall, it wasn't my gun. What do you mean it wasn't your gun? Brad brought it. And he looked at me and he said, what? And I said, he said, give me that gun. Where's it at? And so when he saw it was that John Wayne revolver, God, my dad grabbed me by the hair of the head and pulled off his belt, started spanking me in front of Jonas, scared him to death. He said, Jonas, get in the truck. I'm going to take you home. And so I got a good old fashioned whipping, and rightfully so.
Oh,
and
man.
So, yeah, I mean, I was ate up with coon hunting. Ever since, same thing. I just love it.
You know, I don't think you can, like you guys were trying to attribute that to something, or I don't think there's any explanation. You know, I don't think, I mean.
Why some people get the bug?
Yeah, because I've seen it, you know, inside families like you're talking about, and they'll, you know, some it just doesn't, you know, it's just not their thing. And then other guys, it's just the second they're introduced to it, it's just, it triggers something in you where you can't even help it. Like, you know, that's what you want to do.
Yeah. And once you get the bug, I mean, it gets you hard. I think people that are a little bit more romantic in their thinking, you know, if they grew up playing cowboys and Indians and wanted to look, I mean, there's just something about it that you want to be John Wick. You want to be whoever that guy is that you see in the magazines, the Burt Nonis and the Albert Vaughns, and you read the old stories and stuff from the Lee brothers, and you're like, man, that's cool, and so you just get ate up with it.
Yep.
Yeah, in my family, it tends to skip a generation. So I don't know if maybe like we're all just rebels or whatever. So if your father likes it, then you rebel and don't like it.
Exactly.
And then it just keeps flip flopping back. It goes that way through generations in my family, where it just skips one.
I'll tell you a story about a couple funny stories about how ate up I was with it. So, when I was a kid, our bedroom was on the second floor, and we had a pole that went up the outside of the house. It was supposed to support a window unit air conditioner that never had a window air conditioner on it. You know, uh, we never had air up there at all. But that pole was a great place to like scale down the outside of the house, and I could climb back up too. So I would had access to my own 22 rifle and stuff like that. I probably, I don't know, early teenage, maybe 12, 13. And I would like lower my rifle out with a string all the way to the ground, slide out the window, shimmy down the side of the house. I'd have my light and, my flashlight and everything staged out there. And I'd go out and grab the dog and go hunt on the creek behind the house and then come back in. And it was the same deal, man. I came down I was shimmying back up the pole, got up there, and I was halfway in the window, like coming back in. And the window sills weren't, 14 inches off the floor. So I'm like hanging halfway in the floor, and the light flips on, and Mom's sitting there looking at me. And she's like, what are you doing? And she goes, you think you're sneaky, don't you? And I said, yeah. She goes, we sleep with the windows up. We can hear your dog back there on the creek. We already knew you were gone. I just, and that was it. That was how ate up I am. And then you see the banner behind me here, the Marine Corps banner. When I was getting ready to enlist in the Marine Corps, they all say your recruiter will never lie to you. I looked at him and I said, you think I'll be able to hunt while I'm in the Marine Corps? And he goes, oh yeah. And he goes, what kind of hunting do you do? And I said, coon hunting. He goes, well, you'll probably go to Camp Lejeune. That'd be a great place for you to hunt. You'll be able to take your coon dogs. Like, sign me up. I'm going. I never saw a coon dog for years.
They don't lie.
Oh, well, let me look and see. We got some comments that came in. I'm kind of looking forward. Billard Dwyer said he's looking forward to it. Jason Snellgrove, he can't wait to hear the first one. Billy Dwyer, he's just a coon hunting podcast junkie. If you can talk about anything you want, except it's got to have a coon dog in it, and Billy will listen to it. So he's hardcore. We're going to. Anything else you want to touch on, Brad? How did we meet?
I do want to say that Dad never was the competition hunter, Chris.
Yeah.
He just a good old pleasure hunter. But I caught the competition bug real bad.
Mm-hmm.
20s and 30s. And, a lot of the guys that going to listen, if they do listen, I invite them to listen. I hope they listen to the Grace and the Chase. They're going to remember the Brad Hall that was competitive. And so I asked you guys to just show me grace on that. That was back in the time that, coon hunters are very competitive when they're in that ring of circle with 3 other dogs and 3 other handlers. So I did catch the bug, the competition bug, not so much now. I'm pretty much retired from all that, but I still enjoy going now and then. And
well, there's a reason why you're retired.
Why the reason?
Yeah, I said there is a reason why you're retired.
Okay, what's that reason? You tell me.
Well, I mean, same reason I am. Basically, my ears gave out. Your ears have always been out.
Yeah. Yeah. And so but I'm cool with that. I had a lot of fun. With it. And so
I always thought about that, Brad, when we, because I've drawn you on casts and seen you at the hunts and different stuff. And I know you've struggled with that hearing disability as long as I've known you. And I knew that had to be a struggle for you. And I didn't realize how much of a struggle it is until, my hearing started going about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And then and even with hearing aids, it's just different. It's different than back in the day, when I could hear, but you never even experienced that.
No, I never got to experience the good hearing. And now that I got the cochlear implants, I wear one on each ear. Uh, it is amazing. But the problem
Mm-hmm.
with that, Chris, I could probably hear just like everybody else, but I can't tell directionality.
Yeah.
And if I couldn't use a GPS handheld in the hunts to this day, I I, I mean I wouldn't know which way the dogs are at.
So you can call your dog, you can
Yep,
strike your dog, and you can tree your dog. But if you can't look at your handheld, you don't know which way to point to judge
that's
the
exactly
direction they're
right.
treed in.
That's exactly right. And so during the summertime, uh, when the leaves are on and stuff, I gotta have the light on the collar. That visual helps me tremendously. Is seeing the lighted collar.
Yeah.
So, but
Do
it's in
you
my. Go ahead.
are you allowed to use a lighted collar in a hunt? Are you allowed
You
to turn
are.
the light on?
Yes,
Are
you
you?
are. Yeah,
It's been a while. You can
yeah,
tell.
yeah.
You can
But
tell.
it can be used against you hard, Chris. That,
Well, that's true because I do remember we've always been able to use the lighted collars because I remember the little slide on strobe lights you could
yep.
slide on the dog's collar. I saw more than one guy take a minus on a dog treat because they said their dogs were treed, and then the only dog in the collar had blue lights on it and trailing off to the left when they're supposed to be treed to the right.
Right.
It's hard to get out of that one.
Yep. Yep. I mean, so you know, uh, there was always that hope that I could be a top level playing competitive hunter.
Hmm.
Back in the day, in my 20s, Chris, I was probably about 21, 22, and I went over to Eastern Indiana and I was hunting a competition hunt. And at that time, my hearing was pretty decent, even at 2021. I mean, because it was the nerve deafness that went bad as
Hmm.
I got older. But I drew this little boy, about 10, 11 years old, something like that. And I could tell this kid was just as ate up with coon hunting as I was his age.
Yeah.
And we got done in the cast, and I'll never forget it. He looked up at me and he said, Mr. Hall, he said, how do you think I did tonight? How do you think I did tonight? I said, you did a good job, son. You did a fine job. And I said, you'll do good. You'll do good. And that was Scott Ingle, that looked
Oh,
up at
no
me and
kidding.
said that. And look at him today. He's the
Yeah, no
man.
doubt.
I'll never forget that. And
Yeah.
so I'm happy for a young boy like that had that dream, that asking, hey, how do you think I did good? Do you think I did good? And to be able to encourage him, shoot, yeah, you did good. You're gonna do. And here he is. He's the man now.
Oh, yeah, he's made a living off of hounds his whole life.
Yeah,
Yep, for
good
sure.
old
Some
boy.
of the some of the top hounds
Always got a smile on his face. He's a joy and just a pleasure to listen to and talk to sometimes.
hmm
Just
yeah. Well, we kind of started in. We decided a few weeks ago how long we've known each other, and we've known each other for 33 years. Seems like I always, hunting around the central Indiana clubs and stuff. Then we always cross paths, and I always saw you at Autumn Oaks, and you remember the first time we met? I don't. We've got a difference here on.
but I know for the first time for me, I was I was going to Vincennes University and I was 20
Hmm.
years old, and they were holding the Black and Tan Days just over the state line in Illinois at
Over
Charlie Brown
Flora.
Park. Yeah,
Yeah.
over at Charlie Brown Park, and I remember seeing Rob and George Wallen over there, and I seen you talking to him, and you had this Walker dog at Black and Tan Days.
Don't be telling people that I was hunting a Walker dog.
No, boy, you was though, and you won. I think you won the whole thing if I remember
I was high
correctly.
scoring. I was high scoring dog for
Yeah,
Black and Tan Days.
you
Is a
took the hardware home.
mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
then I seen you several other times at the hunt after that. And then I found out that you were the conservation officer, game warden.
And then you didn't talk to me for several years.
And
for
I'm
30
like, oh
years.
boy. That's the first time I remember meeting you. When do you remember?
I drew you. I drew you in a cast somewhere. That's the first time that I can remember. Um, it was summertime because you're wearing that hard hat that you'd taken a drill to and drilled all the holes in it.
Yep.
And I thought, that's actually not a bad idea, Brad. Letting all that heat and everything out. I
Right.
was like, yeah, that's some hillbilly ingenuity right there. I mean,
Oh
you
yeah.
solved the problem. But I probably was still hunting Sugar Creek Joe at the time,
Yep.
and yeah,
So I got to ask you, Chris. I mean, you were a young man then, 10. All right. How did you go from hitting the winner's circle with the Walker dog, all right, to going down the trail of plot hounds and blue ticks? I mean,
I've won a lot.
that's a head
Well,
scratcher.
have you ever heard of it? I've won a lot more with other colored dogs than I ever did with a Walker. I can tell you that.
Okay.
To me, Walker dogs, I can tell you, I look at it like this. Okay. I live in a rural community here, and within 10 miles of my house right here, I can think of, I could probably find 15 or 20 guys that could tear down a Chevy truck, but you can't find one that can work on anything. And the reason they can is because Chevys are easy to work on. And Walker dog guys are the same way. Anybody can take a Walker. If you can't go out and tree a coon with a Walker, then you're not much of a houndsman. But when you start taking a plot and you start beating Walker guys,
Yeah.
then you're doing something.
Yep. Yep.
You see it? You see the sign behind me? It's not like I'm that smart, Brad. I joined the Marine Corps. I should have been in the air. Smart people join the Air Force or the Navy.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't even I can't even beat a house cat now. I I struggle out there. I can even take a dog and beat a house cat out in the cast. So I just appreciate going out there and running and treeing coon, pleasure hunting with my buddies and
You know somebody named Carl Gilbert?
Carl Gilbert.
He said did
Oh
some
yeah, old Carl
did
Gilbert over there in Virginia.
yeah.
Well, West Virginia, I believe. Yes, sir.
See, Carl's my kind of guy.
Yes,
Blue dog all the way.
he is. He's a blue man all the way. That's right. How you doing, Carl?
Yeah. Um no, it's just one of those deals. It's like I always wanted to have plots. The first good dog I ever went to the woods with, it was like a for real dynamite. He was impressive tree dog. He was out of, remember Bill Harrell and Harold's Carter?
Yeah.
That plot dog that Bill Harrell had, one of the first plots he had that he did a lot of winning with. And then my uncle had a pup out of Carter that was just a whale of a tree dog and a good decent coon dog. I think he's probably a little bit rough, but I didn't know any better. If he was good with dogs, he knew. He just wasn't real good with strange dogs. But ever since then, man, I just like, and I read the old Foxfire books about the old bear hunters and the historical side of it. Even whether the story's true or not, I don't believe they came. They rode over here on the Mayflower or anything, but just the history with the plot hound, that hard scrabble life that they lived and through the mountains and all that stuff and how they were developed. It just appealed to me. So, and I got to tell you, so at the 50th annual Autumn Oaks, I was hunting a plot dog, and we drew out with 3 Walker dogs. And these guys from Tennessee were hunting a Walker, and they asked if they could ride with us. And we had an old guy it was a grandpa and a grandson. And grandpa kept saying, I guess you boys can hunt whatever you want. But I told this boy if he wanted to win in these hunts, he needed to get him some Walker dogs. He's riding in my truck, and he's back there running his pie hole in the back seat. And I was like, yeah, I guess I've hunted with some good Walkers, and I was being respectful and everything. And we went through that cast, and we came out of there, and that night, we split treat at the end of the cast. And I'm sitting here looking at this huge oak tree, and I look up and I find the coon right away. And I look up and I said, "There's a coon." And those guys all come running over there, and they're looking. It's like, we don't see it, we don't see it, we don't see it. And I just got a glimpse of it. He was there, and then boom, I caught an eye out of the corner of my eye to the left, and I shine my light that way, and there was another coon laying on that limb, just right out in the open. I said, "Well, can you see that one?" And they're like, "Crap!" And the hunt was over. The time ran out. I won. We get back to the truck, and that old guy's like, "I heard you boys in there getting after it. How'd them walkers do? Who won that cast?" And his grandson looked at him and goes, "The plot dog." And I looked at the old guy. Said, "Man, if you really want to win big, you got to get you a plot." Yeah.
There's good in every breed. I mean,
Oh
I've
yeah,
seen it. I have. So,
for sure.
um,
I've had as much fun hunting mountain curs, and I'll tell you that's one. If you can win a PKC hunt with a mountain cur, that'll make people turn their heads.
back when I was a young boy and I was reading them full cry magazines,
Mm-hmm.
I fell in love with reading about Stephen Stock mountain curs.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I bought one. I got one back then. And so I had a little run with the cur dogs. Yep. Stephen Stock mountain curs. Uh, Let me ask you something, Chris. I mean, did the plot dog somehow cross to a cur line that made the plot hound? They got that brindle and some of the color, but like a brindle cur and stuff like
I,
that.
you know, Ed will be a weigh in on this too because we've had these fun conversations. But if you whether you're a purist with the original mountain cur or you're a purist with the plot, if you're a purist, you won't admit that ever happened. That any the purist for the plot will say, "Oh, they came over here on the Mayflower and started with 5 dogs and all this stuff, and they never bred outside the lines and all that." But that's virtually impossible. I mean, those
Yeah.
people were living isolated mountain lives in the 18th century. It's not like today. For me to travel to your house, Brad, in Coatesville, Indiana, I can do it in 2 hours in a truck, or I can do it in 2 days on a horse, or I can do it in 4 days walking. And a lot of those mountain people were walking through those mountains. So um, I used to joke around all the time and tell them that my plot's got more original mountain cur in it than their original mountain cur does.
Hmm.
It's just,
Yep.
Ed, what do you think?
I mean, I think for sure there's. I mean, 100% sure there's cur in plots, and
Hmm.
then it's probably about. I would say about 80% that it's mountain cur. 80% chance that those curs were mountain cur.
Hmm.
There's
Yeah.
just too many There's too many similarities.
Yeah. Yeah. You start getting into like some of the big game bred. I'll tell you the one that kind of threw it all off was a Brandenburger plots. They were bigger, they were houndier looking, and then the plot started taking on this more of um a hound look. But when you get into some of those older lines of plots, the ears are a little bit shorter, their noses are a little bit more pointy. You look at some of the mountain curs, the head shapes are a lot the same. I mean, I've seen a lot of plot dogs that if you bobbed their tail, you'd think they were a mountain cur, and I've seen a lot of mountain curs that if you left their tail full, they'd look like plots.
Yeah.
Hmm. So let me ask you this. I mean, my experience with cur dogs, they were better summertime. They were better hot nosed dogs than fall winter, and they seem to be more loyal as being easier to handle in the wood to come to. You call them, and they were more loyal than what I've seen hound dogs. So, with that being said, what do you see the plot hound versus the other breeds as far as being loyal, being a better dog to handle, and all that? Would you see any similarities, or do you say they stand out on that?
Ed, what do you think? You answer first.
Well, I don't know plots all that well, but I mean, the old saying that a hound hunts for himself and a cur hunts for you. So, what do you think? Do you think a plot hunts for himself or hunts for you? To me, I mean, the ones I've been around, I ain't been around probably as near as many as you have. To me, they were more on the cur side.
Um, the ones that like some of the lines I've seen, the good ones that I've seen, they're like a bunch of wild Indians, man. They don't care about you. They care about catching and stretching whatever they're after. That's the style of plot that I like to hunt.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I mean, if you go back, so a cur, that's a really broad, that's a really broad term.
mm-hmm,
But those were just dogs that you had around. It was a general dog that you had around the house. Uh,
mm-hmm.
it would hunt. It would. You could work livestock. It was a guard dog. It was just an everything dog. So I mean, it makes sense that those dogs are going to be a little more inclined to want to please a person,
Mm-hmm.
where the hounds were strictly single purpose, hunting. But yeah, I'm with you. If I'm looking for a dog, I want a dog that does it because they're just running on instinct, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't want them doing it for me. I want them doing it for themselves.
The old mountain people, they didn't tie dogs up, and they had to put the females. They had to put the females in the corn crib and lock them up when they started coming in heat, so the neighbor's dog didn't. So they were living under the cabin. They were living under the porch. They were out there when you're gathering stock or whatever, and that's what the some of the historical records that I've seen of the plot. I mean, they came from that North Carolina, East Tennessee, Appalachian culture, so they were there all the time, and I doubt that they were tying them up, and Michael Smith, we'll get to you, Michael. I got something for you for that comment right there. But yeah, the cur dog, the way cur dogs were raised, and the way the plots were developed over time weren't that much different. Yeah, and
No.
you can't tell. I mean, I'm sure that there were some guys. If you went to the John Plot's house, then you expect to see plot dogs. But I bet you could walk down the road and walk by a homestead and not really tell that much difference between the plot dogs and the mountain curs on the mountain. I bet there wasn't a lot of difference if just by looking.
Yeah, I mean, from my understanding, the real heavy hound influence in the plots didn't come around until like the mid '50s or something like that.
Dale Brandenburger, Pioneer Drum, and that dog came from that supposedly that plot came from Vaughn plot.
Yeah, and at least history puts him being one of the people who put Bloodhound actually in plots. I wish Clue Anderson was here. He could lecture all of us for.
See, I was going to let you bring that up because I still have friends in the plot breed, and that really is like a super sensitive type subject. But you're
I
right,
mean,
Vaughn.
I think it's pretty well. I mean, it's pretty well documented and out in the open, isn't it?
Yeah, if I remember right, Vaughn was a prison guard, so
He was a prison guard. Yeah.
he was a houndsman for the prisons and stuff like that. And so he had hounds around there, and he probably had an accidental breeding, or who knows what. But something ended up coming out of that.
Yeah, and I can't remember
Did
which
he
one it
admit
was.
it?
I think so. And one of his uncles, I can't remember his name, but one of the older plot family members was kind of mad at him. I can't remember
Oh, I
where I
imagine.
came across it. But I mean, I think it's pretty well documented. I don't think it really is up for discussion.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to check on that. But I think Brad, for you, I think the blue ticks and the Treeing walkers and stuff like that. Those breeds were a little more. They were a little more high class. That Walker dog came from running stock royalty from England to George Washington, mounted foxhounds, and so I think there was a little more uh, uh, protective nature over they held a little higher status, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, we're curs were kind of like just kind of poor people's, mountain people's dogs.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Just
Yep.
seems like the cur dogs just were real loyal, uh, like a one man dog. I mean, just you can just talk to them. Hey, I mean, they're right there. Where I got this dog right now. I'm hunting. I hunted a hunt a few weeks ago, club hunt, and at the end of the night, I mean, at the end of the cast, he come off the tree. He decided he was going to go on, and he wasn't 20 yards from it. And I was like, Fred, get over here. Get over here. I mean, one ear out the other. I ended up having to chase him 600 yards. I had to wait for him to get treed. That just drives me nuts. I'm like, that's probably more my fault not handling my dog and doing the groundwork at home and stuff. But I still feel like he's 2 years old. He knows me. I love on him every day and everything else. And for him not to listen, that just like, oh man, you know. So.
Don't get a Yog Terrier. Man, they go in the zone, and actually Tough does pretty good anymore. But I've ran enough electricity through him to power a Tesla. So
Yeah, you say that, but we were talking about it last week when me and Cody were hunting, and we was in New Mexico that last bear we treed, and then you just called the dogs off and we started walking out. And it was kind of a rough walk in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I was telling Cody, I was like, yeah, he's like, that was pretty impressive. I was like, yeah, I remember walking out thinking, I ain't going to walk real fast because we're probably going to be looping back around to get Tough. But he didn't. Like, he stayed
No,
with us.
yeah, he's doing a lot better. Matter of fact, he by himself he doesn't range out real far. Now, if he can. If you see him throw that head up, and man, he gets it in the wind. He can be 400 yards from you before you can blink an eye. And if he's got blood in his eye, then he knows what the tone button is. And I really haven't ran that much electricity through him. It's just, use the e-collar to correct him. He's just kind of naturally been broke to the tone.
Yeah.
It's like, and we started that in the house with treats and stuff like that. And yeah, I don't know.
I found that a lot of dogs react to the tone. Just,
Hmm?
and I mean, just right off the bat,
Yeah.
you know.
If you can be close enough to them, it scares them. Okay, so Carrie's bulldog. If she tones him, he freaks out. He's like, "What the heck is that?" Now she'll put the e-collar on vibrate and just buzz him. Give him the vibrate, and he comes right back. But if like that tone deal, if you try to tone them and they're 300 yards away the first time, they have no idea what that is. They're just flipped out and scared of it. But if you can tone them and then be right there for them and praise them, whatever you got to do, then it doesn't take much.
Yeah. But I mean,
Yeah.
I've got a young dog now that uh, had never been shocked, never been toned, and she was maybe 300, and I toned her and then started watching, and she's on her way back, and it's like, how does this even make any sense? I don't get it. I mean, generally, what I do with dogs is tone, wait a couple seconds, and then put some electric to them. Just a few times, and then I don't even have to use the electric from then on out on most dogs. But I never even did
See,
that
I
with
go
her.
to I when I if I'm going to use electric. So Indy, the big blue tick, tone, no break at all, man. It's like tone boom, tone boom. You give him the tone, and if he doesn't respond, then I give him a tone and I follow it up with the stimulation, and that'll shut him down. That way he knows. And this comes from like Garmin dog trainer guys. It's like they got to relate that tone that it's a precursor to the
Yeah.
correction. They're trying to beat the correction. Their response is, I've got to figure out how I'm going to beat the correction. So if you can get them to the point where as soon as they hear the tone, they're responding, then you can don't have to stem them at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Brad, as far as I'll tell you what, you were talking about a handle on a dog, and I'm just like you. You know, we grew up in Indiana. We both watch guys get dogs out of the truck and get drugged to wherever they're going to cut them loose and line them up, and the dogs are all, stretching leashes and stuff like that. And everybody thinks that's going to take hunt out of them if you teach that dog to handle. And it really didn't happen until I started hunting out west more and saw that guys don't even carry leashes with them. They just break dogs. These dogs you could have 6 of them, 8 of them, 10 of them on a tree. I watched Calvin Redhouse do it from across a canyon. Their dogs were probably 100 yards away. If we'd had to walk over there and leash dogs, they were treed on line, and it was like 40 foot down and 40 foot back up the other side, and we're only 50 yards from them straight as a crow flies. Calvin's like, "Hey, we're done," and boom, they just start peeling off, coming across there, and walk back with us to the truck. If you come and coon hunt with me, I don't leash dogs much anymore.
That's pretty good.
Yeah,
that's what I need to learn to do.
but the thing of it is, you can also, if you're too heavy handed on them, then you can you can take the hunt out of them if you're too heavy handed. So I think there's a balance, because I have gone overboard a time or two with hard headed dogs and tried to put too much handle on them. Yeah.
I've gotten soft hearted in my the older I get, and so I'm not like I used to be when it comes to handling the dog, and because I really love these dogs. I mean, he's my buddy, and I don't want to, but trying to find that balance.
Michael Smith just can't help himself. He's full of it tonight.
What's this he's saying?
I can't.
You have to breed a blue tick to the plot to get them to hunt. Man, that's below the belt, Michael.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure which one he's trying to get to hunt. Is it the plot or the blue tick?
I don't know either. I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, I'm not sure. And then he follows it up with this. He's like, you have to use electricity to jumpstart a plot to be able to keep up with a blue tick. Oh, man. Oh.
Hey, you just wait. One day soon, we're going to see the blue tick in the UKC World Championship Winners Circle.
Who's it going to be? Carl says you need a good blue tick. I put one in his hands.
Yep, you did.
Yep.
He was on his way. His litter mate's doing some winning too, boy.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Was that a Jazz and Crash? Was that last litter? That's the last litter.
Yeah.
Jazz had, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I've got a litter mate to him out here. Yep. I'll let you talk me out of that pup. You came down to the house, and I was going to keep that pup, and you're like, I really like that one over there. And I was thinking what John Wick always said, you just take the ones that are left over and make coon dogs out of them. So, but he was a good looking dude. What'd you call him? Do you ever remember what you named that dog?
I called him High Dollar something because I never gave that much for a pup before.
It wasn't that much.
$500 or something like that.
And that was a bargain.
I just never gave much for a pup before. And
yeah, I can tell from some of the dogs I've hunted with before that you've had.
Yeah. Dad had that pup going, man. He loved that. And he was a big old horse. I mean, he's like a horse. Good looking dude.
Yeah.
Big old mouth on him.
What happened?
Well, Dad, Dad, he's 83. And this a couple years ago, so Dad, during the summertime, the dog kennel at Dad's house is under a bunch of trees. There's a lot of shade. And Dad drove a stake in the ground with the chain on it. And he would put that big old long chain out there and let old Blue out there on that stake. because that way the dog could, stretch his leg and lay in the grass and just enjoy the shade like that. And then he'd put the pup up at night before we go to bed. And I got a call the next day, one day after work, and they said, "Hey," they said, "do you own a coon dog?" And I said, "I own several. Why?" And they said, "Well, do you have a? There's one down here, the county road 550 north, where my dad." And I said, "Well, my dad lived down that way." I said, "Why? What's wrong?" And they said, "Well, it's dead on the side of the road." I said, "What?" And they said, "Yeah." They said it's got a chain attached to it.
Oh.
And it somehow got broke loose off that stake and took off. I guess it went hunting, got hit on the road, and man, that was the hardest thing ever to call my dad because he loved that blue dog. He would the way this works, guys. My dad's a pup trainer, and I mean, he is a good pup trainer. So he would take a pup, and he would get it going and do all the homework for me, and then when it starts running trend, then he brings it to me. Then I take over. And that's where he was getting that blue dog for me too. So,
yeah, I was excited about you having that blue tick.
Yeah, I was excited about it. Just it's like so disheartening because I was looking forward to it.
Yeah. Yep. Michael's on a roll. He's got another one coming. He said, "You need to learn to spell, Michael. Put your glasses on. Put your glasses on. Put the Miller lights down. I've tried more coon with a blue tick on accident than most tree with a plot on purpose. And we know what you're trying to say, but I had to read it like you wrote it." Michael pouring it on tonight. Yep. No, your dad was always a lot of fun to be around, and those pup starters are hard to come by.
Yeah, they got it. They got a special touch where they got the right amount of patience and know what to do. I mean, he really doesn't have the patience. I mean, he'll take an old coon and he'll trap that coon, and it is what it is. But this is what he does. He'll water that coon, feed that coon, and then he'll take that coon where that coon poops, and he'll take a rag on the end of a long stick, and he'll tie that rag up, and then he'll dip it in water and smear it in that coon poop, and then he would start running the trail, laying the trail around the yard. He got a big old yard, and he'd start turning them pups loose, and they start smelling that track. Once they start showing interest in that track, then he'll take that cage coon, and he always believed in introducing a coon dog to where that coon dog lived in his home, because the dog is protective of his home. He said, "You get a dog mad because there's something coming in his area, in his territory, that'll give him an anger toward that." I mean, Dad just that just pup training coming out of him, and it works. I mean, what he does, it works.
Yeah.
So he brings the cage coon into the dog's.
Pardon me.
So he brings the cage coon into where that dog lives.
Put it right in the kennel and get that pup mad at him, fired that dog, that something's in its kennel. That makes him offensive.
That makes sense. So I mean, kind of a similar deal. I haven't done it in a long time, but what we used to do with dogs who didn't want to bay a pig or didn't want to do it real good, we would take dog food and pour it in the hog pen. Then we bring the dog in, let them start eating a little bit of food. Then we turn the pig out. Well, the pig would most times whoop the dog off the dog food, and the pig would sit there and eat their dog food, and they get mad as hell.
Imagine. Heck yeah.
So I mean, that's kind of the same principle in a way.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Carl, you better get you one, buddy. he got rid of his blue dog and started beagle hunting. So
I think he was talking to Michael, getting him another Miller Lite.
I think that's what he was talking.
Yeah, but he needs to get him another blue tick too, right? Yeah. Well, Brad, you're going to be dropping on Friday. Can you give us any teasers at all
Yeah. So here's the teaser, guys. Can you imagine taking a coon dog that you just became owners of, never hunted the dog in a hunt in your life, and the first competition hunt you ever put the dog in, you win the world championship? Wouldn't that be amazing?
Yeah.
Uh, that's who's going to be sharing the story. We're going to be hearing the first-hand account straight from the person that did that. And not only did he win that world hunt, he went back the next year and won the same world hunt with the same dog. And I don't know how many men had done that. Very few. So that'll be our guest on Friday. And man, we got some funny stories coming up, and it'll be a good podcast.
I'm gonna hide this for a minute. I can't wait to hear it, Brad. And I think it's gonna be. I've listened to most of the first one, and I think it's just gonna be a great deal. Are you gonna talk about any bluegrass stuff?
I might. Well,
Who's the most famous bluegrass
well,
musician you've ever met?
well, I met them all. Okay,
All of them.
I
You
met.
ever met Del
I met.
McCree?
Ralph Stanley, the Osborne brother, Jim and Jesse McReynolds, Bill Monroe, Jimmy Martin. I met them all. I got pictured with them all. I've been going to Bean Blossom Bluegrass Festival since 1984. And so I grew up with these guys.
Yeah.
But my favorite all time, Ralph Stanley. From old brother, where art thou? Now, Ralph Stanley, he down there across the mountain from where my dad grew up in Virginia. And I absolutely love his banjo style. You either like Earl Scruggs banjo style or the Clinch Mountain style, which is Ralph Stanley. And when I played banjo, I like that Clinch Mountain. And so when Ralph Stanley passed away in 2016, my dad and I packed up and we went to his funeral down there in the Virginia mountains.
No kidding.
We went to his funeral, and I was sitting right there with Ricky Skaggs came in, Vince Gill, Patty Loveless. They got up, sung "Don't Go Rest High on That Mountain."
Oh yeah.
And I mean, just a beautiful day, a beautiful.
That's one of my favorite songs. Vince Gill singing that "Go Rest High." Yeah.
Yeah, and so Ralph Stanley would be the man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, you've lived quite a life. Are you going? Do you play the banjo too?
I play a little bit of banjo. Yeah.
You going to play any on the podcast?
Nah, no, that's not that. We got a
banjo.
We got a banjo introduction, but it's not me.
I know, but we're gonna get you back on live show.
Yeah.
With the banjo.
Yeah, I'll have to do something like that.
Yeah,
that'd be cool.
So, guitar is my main thing. I got a Martin DR2 Rosewood. My dad got a Martin D35, and I mean we enjoy the bluegrass music. Bluegrass and coon hunting go hand in hand, boys.
Yeah,
you're right. You're right. I noticed Rob Patrick likes and comments on a lot of your stuff. Do you know Rob and Daniel?
Who
Rob Patrick. Uh-huh.
Oh, his boy played. His boy played for Larry Sparks, bluegrass musician Larry Sparks out of down there, Greensburg, Indiana. Yeah, Rob Patrick's boy. They're fine people. I used to see Rob over there at the Bean Blossom Bluegrass Festival.
Mm-hmm. I saw Daniel the first time. He was probably 9 or 10 years old. He was at Jamestown, Tennessee, playing in the parking lot. Him and his dad were playing. They were drawing a crowd, and I was watching this kid play that banjo, and I was like, you have got to be kidding me.
Oh, he's unreal.
He is unbelievable. He was unbelievable at 10 years old. And then when we had the PlotDogs.com Plot Dogs Championship at my house, then Patrick's came over and played for us at the Plot Dogs Championship.
Yeah. Now, so Daniel actually played at Automotes this past year.
I know he did. I'm sorry I missed that.
Yeah, it was a great show. But no, Daniel, I think his sister, okay, they started playing with Larry Sparks. Now, Larry is like the last of the Mohicans of the old time bluegrass people alive.
Mm-hmm.
And I love Larry Sparks. And so they played with Larry Sparks there for a while. I mean, that was a good group.
Yeah, Rob and Daniel. Rob anyway. He's a coon hunter.
Yep.
Yep. So
Daniel likes more of the. He did a lot of squirrel hunting with them squirrel dogs and stuff.
oh, does he?
Yes, sir.
Oh man, I need to touch base with those guys again. They're not very far away from me over here.
No, good folks too.
Are they still in Ohio?
Pardon me?
Are they still in Ohio, or do you know?
Yes. Yeah, they are.
Okay. Yeah, I need to reach out to Rob and reconnect there.
Yep.
Daniel will be a good podcast guest.
Oh man, he sure would.
You better hurry. I'm gonna beat you to it.
Yep, I have to get him on there. So I know Daniel had and his sister had devoted their time to bluegrass gospel. They do a lot. They do a lot of gospel traveling. So
yeah.
I went to this one bluegrass show, Bean Block and Bluegrass Festival, and my mind blanked. A good mandolin player, Doyle Lawson. I heard him. Despite this young boy, he was a young boy. He was real good on the instruments. And he went up to Doyle Lawson and said, "What do I got to do to make it big in bluegrass?" I'll never forget what I heard Doyle Lawson say. He said, "Son, the best thing you can do is devote it to God, play for the Lord." And I never forget hearing him say that. Like, man, that's pretty good advice in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, let's hit Michael's comment and then wrap her up. What do you say? Let's see what he's got. Disclaimer: I have plots in my kennel, no blue ticks. I do use my dictionary for this comment. # Miller Light Deep. I appreciate you guys and no hate to any breed. He's trying to make up for it now. To any breed, just trying to get a laugh out of you guys. Been busy, haven't been able to tune in, but I support the cause. Yes, he does. He does. Michael 100% supports the cause. Keep the hounds on the ground. Keep putting the content out, guys. Well, you're awesome too, Michael. We appreciate you. I'm glad you had time to tune in tonight. You kept it lively, that's for sure.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, Michael listened to the podcast with Clue and then got a hold of Clue. I think he got a pup from him.
No kidding.
If I'm right. If I'm not, Michael.
He probably did.
Let me know. If it wasn't you, it was another guy named Michael Smith.
Yep. You ought to listen to that podcast, Brad. It's called it's the Dogmen Podcast. What we call that one? Was it just Clue Anderson?
Yeah, we just name him by the guest.
Yeah. It was outstanding.
Okay.
Outstanding. That was a good one.
Yeah. So I just want to share with everybody that, if you would go on Facebook, find Grayson the Chase. That's the name of it. Just request friend. I'd like to build that Facebook page up. That way we can keep everybody up to date for each week going into the show. And I share the link to the show and give a little teaser before. And so appreciate you having me on tonight, Chris.
Well, Brad, it's an honor. And I've always appreciated your friendship.
Yep, me too.
Yep. So, Ed, you got anything?
Oh, I think that's pretty much it for me.
All right. Well, I was awake at 3:30 this morning. I have no idea why. I had a whole list of stuff to do, so I tried to take it. I was going to take an afternoon nap, and just started to doze off, and my mother-in-law showed up. My wife wasn't here, so I dealt with that. And then I was about ready to doze off again. I heard something in the kitchen, and my wife's bulldog was standing up on top of the countertop, eating banana nut bread.
Uh-oh.
So I booted his ass out, and it was over at that point. So I just started working on the deck.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, guys. Well, hey, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Brad, I'm really excited for everybody. I'm excited for everybody to listen to this new podcast coming out. It's gonna be great. You're doing a heck of a job with your guest selection. All right, Michael. He says I talked with him. Did not get a pup yet. All right. Appreciate it, everybody. Everybody have a good week. We'll see you next week.
See ya.